Kyle Busch spent his whole life being the loudest man in the room. So the hardest part of losing him wasn't the silence at the track, it was the question nobody knew how to answer. What now? For his wife and his two little kids. If you have followed NASCAR for any amount of time, you know the name Kyle Busch. He was loud, fast, and he won more races than almost anyone who ever lived. So when the news came that he was gone, the whole sport went quiet. And now the biggest question fans keep asking is a simple one: what happens to his family now? This week, Joe Gibbs Racing finally answered. Let's start with what actually happened, because it still feels hard to believe. On Thursday, the 21st of May 2026, Kyle Busch died. He was only 41 years old. He didn't pass away in a crash on the track, which is what most people first feared. He got very sick very fast. Doctors say he had severe pneumonia, and that pneumonia turned into something called sepsis, which is when an infection spreads through the whole body. Just before the Charlotte race weekend, he had to pull out because he wasn't feeling well. Nobody thought it would end like this. The news came from three places at once: his family, NASCAR itself, and his race team, Richard Childress Racing. That tells you how serious it was. NASCAR put out a short message calling him one of our sport's greatest and fiercest drivers. They also asked everyone to give his family some space and privacy during such a hard time. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to understand who Kyle Busch was. He won the Cup Series championship twice, in 2015 and 2019. He won 63 Cup races. And across all three of NASCAR's top racing series, he won more than 230 times. That is the most of anyone ever. He was even named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers. Fans called him Rowdy, and his followers proudly called themselves Rowdy Nation. Love him or not, you could not ignore him. But here is the part that matters most. Right now, the family he left behind. Kyle leaves his wife, Samantha, who he married back in 2010. He leaves his son, Brexton, who is about 11 years old, and he leaves his little daughter, Lennix, who was born in 2022. If you watched Kyle race, you saw his family all the time. They were right there in victory lane with him. Just this past February, after he won a truck race in Georgia, his wife and both kids were standing next to him, celebrating. His son had even started racing dirt cars and had begun competing against his own dad. That is what makes this so heartbreaking. He was a champion, but first he was a husband and a father. So what did Joe Gibbs Racing say? This is the team Kyle drove for from 2008 to 2022. It's where he won both of his championships. It's where he became a legend. When he died, the team put out a message that went straight to the heart. They wrote, "Our hearts are broken for Samantha, Brexton, Lennix, and the entire Busch family." They called him a fierce competitor and a great teammate. But then they said the thing that really mattered, that far more important than any of that: he was a devoted husband, father, and son. They promised the whole team, and the Gibbs family were lifting the Busch family up in prayer. Then Joe Gibbs himself did something he did not have to do. The team owner walked into the media center at Charlotte that Saturday and talked for about half an hour. And for the first 15 minutes, he didn't talk about wins or trophies. He talked only about the family. His very first thoughts went to Kyle's wife and kids, and even to Kyle's parents. And this is the answer fans were waiting for. Gibbs made a promise about the family's future. He said the team's focus from now on would be on them. In his words, "Our focus is going to be for the future for them because we're going to be there." He said, whatever they need, the team wants to be part of it, and that they'll try to encourage Samantha through everything she's about to go through. That is not a small thing. The team that Kyle won everything with is saying they will stand by his wife and children going forward. Gibbs also talked about who Kyle really was as a person. He said, "That guy had great courage. He was not afraid of almost anything, and he had a burning desire to race." He shared a description from Kyle's old crew chief that fits him perfectly, that Kyle was like a NASCAR locomotive. "Get on board, and he'll take you to amazing places. But whatever you do, don't get in front of him." Gibbs has known deep loss before. He lost both of his own sons. So when he spoke about grief, he leaned on his faith. He said, "The end game for us in life is heaven," and he talked about how much he looks forward to seeing Kyle again one day. He even reminded everyone that there was a funny side to Kyle that fans didn't always see. Kyle loved being part of the team's silly holiday videos, doing comedy skits. As Gibbs put it, he could laugh at himself. Now, here's something worth being honest about. The split between Kyle and Joe Gibbs Racing back in 2022 was not pretty. Kyle was hurt by it. He once said the team felt like family for 15 years, and then it just flipped and gone. So for Gibbs to stand up and honor him this way, after all that, shows you that in the end, the bond was bigger than the breakup. But maybe the most touching thing of all came from his current team, Richard Childress Racing. Kyle drove the number 8 car for them. At Charlotte, another driver took the wheel of that car, but the team changed the number from 8 to 33. Why? Because they are saving the number 8. They are holding it for Kyle's son, Brexton, to use one day if he decides to race in NASCAR. Think about that. The number his dad made famous is being kept safe, waiting for the next Busch. That is the legacy being passed down to his little boy. The tributes at the track that weekend were something fans won't forget. The skies over Charlotte were gray, and it was raining, which somehow felt right. The big scoreboard tower went completely dark, except for one single light. It showed Kyle's number 8 sitting all alone in the first place spot. When the garage opened that morning, it was silent, and his car was rolled out first. Drivers from all over the sport shared memories of Rowdy. Even his biggest rival had something to say. Denny Hamlin was Kyle's teammate for years, and the two of them argued plenty, on the track and in the media. After Kyle passed, Hamlin admitted something surprising, that early on, Kyle actually intimidated him. Back when Hamlin was new to the sport, he only knew Kyle by his bold, take-no-prisoners reputation from TV. He said he was thinking, "I'm just this young 25-year-old who doesn't really belong here." And the idea of being around Kyle felt scary. But Hamlin says the real Kyle, away from the cameras, was actually warm and welcoming. He even remembered Kyle goofing around with his phone at a hotel after a race. Two guys who fought for nearly 20 years, and even Hamlin saw the bigger man underneath. So why did this loss shake the whole sport so hard? Part of it is the records. At one point, Kyle had won at every single active track on the Cup Series schedule. He had a win in 19 seasons in a row. But the real reason is simpler than that. A 41-year-old husband and dad, with 2 young kids and so much life left, was suddenly gone with almost no warning. That's the kind of thing that stops everyone cold. In the end, the answer fans were searching for is this: Kyle Busch's family will not be left to face this alone. Joe Gibbs and his team have promised to be there for Samantha, Brexton and Lennix. And the number 8, the number that made Kyle a legend, is now waiting quietly for his son, a piece of his father held in place, ready for the day Brexton is ready to carry it forward.